Welcome to the Kite Pod with me, Roo Chater, a brand new podcast brought to you by the team at ikesurfmag.com, the world's #1 media outlet for kitesurfing. Each episode we'll be diving deep into the sport we love, from the latest gear to the people shaping kitesurfing today. A huge thank you to our diamond supporters, Duotone, Cabrina, Core Kiteboarding and Ozone for making this possible. Don't forget to check out ikesurfmag.com for daily updates, news and videos from this fantastic sport. And if you enjoy the show, please like, share and subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to grow and keeps the stoke alive. Let's get into it. Today, I'm sat down with Aaron Hadlow. He's a good friend of mine. We've been knocking around the kiteboarding industry for a long time and have met on many beaches over the years and been to a few competitions together. If you're a kite surfer, you'll know his name. He's probably one of the fellows that did really well at a young age, and yet he's still really well known even 25 years later by just about everyone. It's a name that is synonymous with kiteboarding. So I really hope you're going to enjoy this episode. But first question to you, Aaron, when was the first time you saw a kite and what did you think when you first saw it?
It was so long ago, I can hardly remember what I was thinking. But yeah, it would have definitely been in 98, around that time, just through my dad, basically, right? So he was windsurfing full on. We lived in Cornwall. Local beach was Gwythian, which anyone in the UK would probably know about. So he used to go out in big waves, always destroy his masts, his sails, and then kiting came along, and he just was ready to make the switch before most of his all of his windsurf mates gave him all the stick, like, what are you doing, this will never take off. So I guess that was my first memory of basically him coming home with a ram air kite full of sand, and after being dragged up the beach, basically. So that was that's how I remember it. But then my first experiences with the kite was basically flying his stuff in light winds. And then when the first inflatable kite came out, which was like a Whippaker Classic, it was along the lines of, oh, it's kind of safe now, that kite floats, even though it was two-line death machine. And that's when I was first allowed on the water to give it a go, basically. So yeah, my first kiting, flying and experiences would have been probably 2000, maybe a little bit before that, and then proper kiting in the 2000s.
Yeah. So there's a group of people that have been kiting now for 25 years. I remember you made your movie Aaron 20, sort of commemorating that, but it's quite interesting, like how many people are still in the sport, guys like Kevin, yourself, there's Ruben. It's great. So I'm going to try and catch up with all of you on this podcast as a little reminder to sort of go for a trip down memory lane and see where things went. But those early kite days, I mean, Gwythian's quite a challenging spot. I was just there for the Kerno Foil Classic and the waves were massive. So what was it like learning at a spot that's got waves and is quite tricky and is quite challenging?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Like, I mean, there's many places around, especially in that bay. If you go further up, there's a big estuary with some lagoons, and my first kiting experience was like in shallow lagoons, like really small, just like doing short tacks to and fro. So yeah, I think that was good. But as I got better, of course, you learn about the currents, the tides, the waves. I think that's something in general, like growing up in the UK, it really molded me as my career developed, really molded me in that direction to be ready for anything. So the conditions were challenging, but the wind always came a different direction, a different strength. The water conditions were generally always different. So I think you get like a really quick, like learning process of understanding the sport. And now I think about it, I think that really just helped me do so well in my career of competitions as well, because I was really adaptive to these, well, not always great conditions, let's say. And for instance, if you come from Brazil or something, like you're just riding like hairdryer wind with flat water lagoons and can do amazing tricks, but it's quite a shock to the system when you get choppy onshore cold conditions, So I think it was good. I mean, I really enjoyed my time growing up in the Southwest because of the the amazing beaches down there and something. It's something I still miss today, because yeah, now I'm in a different location in the UK more because of the fact I travel so much. But I still love to go down to those spots.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think you hit the nail on the head there with UK kiters. We don't get blessed with conditions that are the same every day, right? If you live in Tarifa, you've got two wind directions. You know, the conditions are pretty sort of standard. Places like Brazil, you've got one wind direction. And, you know, you might find that you rock up a beach for a competition and the wind's coming from the opposite direction. I often chuckle, you see people not knowing how to launch their kite and stuff like that. They're just like so bamboozled by changing conditions. So I think it's something we're sort of blessed with in the UK that it does change so much, but at the same time, you know, it can be a bit of a bind in the winter when it's pretty wet and wild and crazy. Do you remember your first ever competition? Because I know you're super competitive, and we'll chat about the competitive side for a bit, because I know you've stepped away from that now. But do you remember the first ever comp you entered?
Yeah, it was in Weymouth. I know there was just a competition there recently as well. It brought back some memories. But yeah, it was basically in Weymouth, and it was the UK BKSA tour at the time, and there was no other juniors. So we kind of rocked up, and like, yeah, I was confident enough to kite and wanted to enter, but then it was like there was no category or anything. So my dad was also in the event, and a bunch of people we knew. Obviously, the early days was so kind of trial and error anyway for things like this. So yeah, basically we rocked up at the registration. They're like, "Oh, how do we do this then?" And then we had to make like a whole new category and a new setup for juniors. And then yeah, that was pretty much my first event. And from then on, yeah, more and more people joined as the year went on, and as the years went on, people like Tom Court, yeah, and a few others started to join in. And then we had our own little group of kiters, of Groms back then. So that was my first event, and then I continued on the UK tour. Yeah, for the next couple of years, basically, just making my way up through the ranks, learning my trade in that, really. So that was again like another really good stepping stone for learning and competing in these changeable, crazy conditions, for when I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then did you ever win the UK championships? I can't remember
No,
if
no,
that's
I've
just one
never
thing that
been
might have
British
eluded you,
champion.
that one title as British champion.
Yeah, yeah, never happened. I was really close, I think, to winning. I think my first year I was just like, I mean, I was junior champion, but I think the first year I was only in the amateurs, and then maybe the next year was in the pros, and then that was like a really close battle. And by that time, I was like already onto the international mindset, bigger, better things. Like I can win. I want to go to the world championships. I was like, yeah, it was just like I was in such a crazy mindset and trajectory to get to the top then. Because I was going to South Africa during the winters, I had that extra months of just continuous kiting, whereas other people in the UK were not obviously kiting as much, being in the winter conditions. Um, so yeah, that's one one that eluded me, but luckily,
Do you think you'd ever fancy coming out of retirement and just do it? Because if you did the UK kite surfing tour, you'd probably win it hands down. Looking at the level of riding that goes on, it would be a sort of shoe in just to come along and do. Could be quite funny. Do you reckon you'd ever do it?
yeah, there were times definitely when I was thinking about it, like, oh, I should just do a year just to have that as a name and have a title. But yeah, I mean, like I say, things happen so rapidly for me at that age that, you know, I think by my second or third year in kiting, I was already close to podiums or on podiums on the international stage. So yeah, kind of, it was just yeah, it was just one of them, and I still loved what the British tour did for the riders who continue to do that. You know, you see people like yeah, Sam Light, Lewis, Craffen, and you know, there was many riders that were really yeah, did well on that and was able to take that next step to international level too. So that was cool. Yeah, it was a nice time.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? When you're on that international trajectory, it's kind of a bit more glamorous than bowling around some pretty sketchy UK spots with crappy onshore conditions and rain. You're like, oh yeah, I'll get a cabaret in Egypt and compete over there. I can definitely see the draw. And how old, like, I don't think we've said like how old you were when you first started. So to give it a bit of context, how old were you in 2000 when you first started taking up kiting?
Yeah, I would have been 10 pretty much. So, or
Yeah,
11 in 2000, going on 12 in the later years. So yeah, it was really like
super
really
young.
young. It was insane. Yeah. And I think by the time I was, it was like my first international event, I was probably only 12 or 13. It really went like the first 2, 3 years were a bit of a blur. You know, I really have to go back through the archives to structure and see what happened there, because, you know, my clear memories, I have points, of course, of those moments, but my clear memories are from when I was really first year competing and starting to win events on the world tour, which was in 2004 already. So in 2004, I won the first championship. So yeah, it was a rapid rise through the ranks. And just
Yes,
like,
you'd have
yeah,
been
that's
like,
just how the sport was back then. You know, it was,
it was
I was one of the
exploding
first
really
of the
quickly,
young
wasn't it?
generations to really take kite surfing from a young age, whereas before most people came from windsurfing or other water sports. And I think that was a huge bonus for me.
A big advantage. And being so young at that age, who was traveling around with you, going to events and stuff like that?
Yeah, my dad. Yeah, dad used to. We used to, yeah, when we were in the UK, jump in our car and head to each event. Obviously, yeah, he enjoyed it as well. Coming from windsurfing and yeah, seeing how the windsurf scene developed. I think he had like a bit of an idea of how it would go with kiting. He was in windsurfing from the early days, and then when the new sport came along, he had a good, clear vision of yeah, probably putting me in the right place at the right time to have the impact that was needed to be successful. So yeah, that was something that was really really important. So my parents used to come around, and it was at a later stage when I started to get older. Um, then I started to travel with yeah different people and friends, and had a manager. But that was more when I was getting close to the age where I could travel on my own.
Yeah, so to start with, your parents were super supportive and helping out. There's a lot of younger kids now, like there certainly feels like a lot more groms, and it's good to see that there's still that tradition of really supportive parents makes a big difference in your career in being able to get you around and stuff like that. Like I think if you look at the Cerrutis and stuff like that, their dad's pretty prominent in everything they do, and yeah, I think it makes a big difference to anyone's career having that supportive parental network's a big thing. And then in terms of sponsorship back then, was it Flexifoil the first brand that you sort of started riding for in the UK? Is that my memory correct on that one, going back all that time?
Yeah, definitely. Mainly them, yeah, as a proper deal. I mean, early days when I got my first like kites or discounted kites, it was with Whippica.
Yeah.
My dad had a strong association with a shop before that for his kites and stuff. Was called West Country Water Sports. Is still a good friend of ours down there,
Pete
Peter
Stevens,
Stevens. Yeah, he
legend.
still goes. So that was like the early days. He used to like definitely help us out with the latest gear and stuff. So I just borrowed my dad's Nash kites and yeah, ended up destroying them, of course, quicker than him riding them on his own. And then I think we got a small deal from Whippica. And then yeah, Flexi was always interested, but at the time they only had like the ram air kites, and that was just like not a clear direction at the time for me. And it was only until they made their first inflatable kite that we got on board, and yeah, the rest
Was
was
that
history.
was that
I mean that's what's so
Flexifoil
crazy when I think
Storm?
about.
Was it the
Sorry,
Storm, the first one that was their first inflatable one?
it was the Storm. Yeah,
It was,
eventually,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
the
Yeah.
classic
The
with the
classic, yeah.
strikes through it.
That's it. The lightning strike.
Um,
Yeah, that was a cool kite that back in the day.
yeah, I
That's
always
funny.
remember
And
that
then
first year with
was it?
Jason
I was
Furness,
going to say
basically.
Jason
Yeah,
was, and he then went on to become your manager, right?
exactly. Yeah, so he was really instrumental in like kind of scouting me and trying to get me on board. It eventually happened, and it was a great uh yeah combination, because like yeah he got me on board, and then we started developing the kites. So like already at that age I was like giving my feedback on the first kites, because they were new to the market. I'd ridden all the other ones, so that was already an early stage of development for me. But then as I started to do well and use these kites to good advantage and start to win championships, then he started to travel with me. He started to look for other sponsors as part of my deal at FlexiFoil, basically to help. Obviously, there was a cap on salaries and how much a kite brand could afford to pay a rider at times. So to make the deal better, he actually came on board working at FlexiFoil, but also to help me travel to gain extra outside sponsors. He got Red Bull and a few clothing companies and stuff like that. And then he also, kind of traveled and support. He's basically was like my older brother in the end. We still have a great relationship to this day. And it was a really, really cool time. That was
Yeah.
that was intense traveling. He was also a legend of the sport, like really early days. So he
Yeah,
was
he was
really
a
able to give me a lot of
super
advice back then.
he was a super good guy. I remember he was the first person that ever bought an advert in IK Surf Mag when we launched it. So when we had this idea for this digital magazine and we rocked up at the FlexFoil offices and saw Jason, and no one really understood what we were trying to do because digital magazines didn't exist back then. And he's signed on the dotted line in that day and was like, yeah, whatever we're doing, we'll support it. So I'll always remember that from Jason, and they were super supportive, from then on. It's quite funny that we're chatting about brands from back then and both of them don't exist anymore, right? Whippica and FlexiFoil. In terms of being in kite surfing, they're not around, which is kind of a shame, but I guess it's a testament to how long you've had this career that it's outlasted some of the brands that you were working with. When you were really doing well on the pro tour, I mean, I think that the competition scene's changed a lot these days, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But to give anyone listening an idea, like there were a lot of events back then in terms of what you were doing on it. I think it was the PKRA, Professional Kite Riders Association. So I seem to recall it was like 10 to 12, sometimes even more events a year, and it was like pretty hectic. But you were winning a lot of them at the time. I think at one time you would basically rock up and you'd win them all. That must have been quite a nice feeling to, one, be so busy, but also know that you could almost write a check for the winning prize money every time you turned up to an event. How was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was an intense time. Of course, like I made my way up, and got to a point of quite dominant, like a lot of dominance. And there were some years more than others, but I felt like most years, maybe except one or two, I would always start off so strong. Like I really had always quite a clear advantage coming into the season. And then as time went on, the guys would see and adapt and the level would get closer. And then, some years you just get across the line and on the last few events, but because there were so many events, you had to really be on it from the start and kind of really maintain that throughout the year. You had discards and so on, but I think some years of Seoul tour events was literally 10, so it was really back to back. Sometimes it was like everybody getting together after the one event, like, oh, how are you traveling, let's get on the same flight, be there at the same time. So there was a lot more like admin and just like trying to figure things out really on the spot, also without the aid of so much easy access to internet and stuff like that. It was it was around, but not at the same level of what we see today. So it was a challenge in that regard. But there's the times like when I was able to just go back to back events, have the confidence to turn up and know I'd at least be in the final, bar any catastrophe or gear failure or something. And we were it was a really, really cool time. I mean, I was such a different person back then. When I think back to how I acted and what mindset I was in to get to those championships, it's it's an intense time in my life, and so much full focus and just one goal, nothing else matters. So it's funny to see that in kids today or whatever, and really be able to understand like how that was. And there was also other events around. So like you would have like your main tour, which was the main thing, and they were all I mean, there's probably people listening to the podcast that understand kiteboarding as multiple disciplines with multiple world championships. But back then, there was one world championship, and if you won that, you were just the best kiteboarder in the world. Like that was it, because it was only that discipline. And if there was like a different discipline, it would be a part of that event as like a secondary event. Um, so yeah, I mean, nowadays there's a lot of events, but there's only one or two in each discipline. So like
Yeah.
it's just way more spread out. And back then it was all a bit more focused just on one thing. So yeah, again, another amazing period in my life, like definitely set me up for the rest of my career.
How was the pressure of being the man to beat? Because you won the world title 5 times. And so you mentioned there, like, at the start of the season, you'd have a bit of an advantage because obviously you'd be off training in South Africa. And I know that you used to work on like new tricks and get new things dialed, and then you'd rock up to the start of the season. But being the man to beat for that long, how do you deal with that kind of pressure?
Um, I was just so driven to be the best kiteboarder, like, and just to prove that. And yeah, some people work their whole life to become world champion, and then once it's there, there's always I've read and seen and spoke to a lot of people who are like, oh, like, but nothing changes, and I put all that effort in for that, and maybe they were expecting something different, or like some sort of. But for me, it was just like a constant push. Like, yeah, I won the first one, and I was like, oh, then two, then three, then four. It was always on to the next. Like, I wanted to just leave like my legacy in kiteboarding, and like I say, then you had the opportunity to be the world's best kiteboarder. It wasn't like, oh, he's the best freestyler or he's the best this. So it was really a time of like where you could really dominate, and I really had this mindset to be like, I want to prove and yeah, just maintain that level. So yeah, there was pressures. I mean, and also, yeah, when you just have so much level of dominance, I think there's always naturally a human element of, you know, people trying to change that narrative, because it's you see it in a lot of sports that yeah, you don't want to see the same person winning. You want to see more of a fight. And luckily, throughout that time, there was always this fight with Kevin, especially. It was always a closer battle than maybe it always looked. It turned out to be, but um, yeah, I mean, the pressure was something I thrived on, basically, I think. And it was only when I got like, yeah, kicked back or just to the point where I'd just been doing it for too long. Like I kind of really, towards the end of it, yeah, in hindsight, I probably could have carried on for longer and done even more. But I felt like there was a certain time towards the end of that where I was just being kicked down so many times that I was just like, right, I've had enough of this. I want to explore different things, and advance in different areas like video projects
Yeah.
and product development. And I think that change was good. It also left a legacy, but from a competitive standpoint, yeah, I think I achieved plenty enough, but you always want more. And yeah, the opportunity was still there.
So I've got one more question on the competitive side, because I know you're a massive fan of F1. And in F1, they have a set of rules and regulations, and then they all go off in the winter and try and like tweak it to get the most advantage. And I heard a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, that one year your kites had different numbers printed on them in big letters. So everyone thought, oh, Aaron's taking a 9, I'll take a 9, but it was actually 11. Is that true, or is that just rumor?
Uh, I don't think so. No, I think I wouldn't have. No, I was never down. Like, yeah, I was fine just to let my riding do the talking. I don't
Yeah.
remember something like that. On my kites, when I first made the Hadlow Pro, the first one, it was actually Roman numerals, or it didn't have the actual number on it somehow or something. It was like translated differently. But not really for that reason. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was chatting a bit about also how Lorenzo right now is doing very well and very consistent, and yeah, for me is showing quite a level of dominance right now in the big air scene. Um, but obviously at the last event it didn't quite go his way, and it's really like I was thinking back to how it was for me, and it's the same. You have level of consistency, quite a smooth, natural style. He makes things look quite easy. But yeah, it doesn't always translate into a win, you know. And I had many moments where, yeah, I can walk away after those 6 years and say I took 5 titles, but there was a lot of events that I didn't win. You know, there was a lot of second places and a lot of, you know, some off the podium or whatever. And usually, yeah, I just feel like if you are that consistent person who is dedicated and putting the time in, and just, yeah, stacking up result after result, in the end, you walk away with the overall impression that, yeah, or the wins basically overall. So there's definitely a bit of a thing with mind games and tactics and stuff. But I mean, I always really wanted just to let my riding talk, and no, I don't think I would have put different sizes. I mean, we would have joked about it for sure. It would be quite funny, but
probably telling people, "Oh, my kite's saying 9, but it's actually 11." Then the next guy
yeah,
goes
it's
out
really
super
just
stacked
like
on his
psych
11.
people out. Would have crossed my mind maybe, but I was just trying to think if there's like any other funny stories like that. But no, I mean, I used to just turn up and do my thing, to be honest. And
Yeah,
yeah, I had a
well,
different reputation for the sort of narrow-mindedness and focus, and you know, I was a quiet and in my own world, and um, yeah, you get a reputation for a certain type of character, but it is what it takes sometimes to really go that full distance.
yeah, to be that driven. It was super impressive anyway. And what's crazy is we're talking about all this, and this all happened before like 2010, and we're now in 2025. Like when we talk about your 5 world titles, it was a while ago that all that happened. You mentioned there about video
Still holding
projects,
on.
and yeah, still holding on. Well,
Still
it's
claiming
one
it.
of those things. Like I don't think anyone else has ever come close. I mean, obviously, on the female side, you've got riders like Gisela, who won more world titles than that and did really, really well as well. And I know she's still, you know, got a thriving kite surfing career and dabble with the racing and stuff like that. But I think in terms of the men's, then it's a sort of period of dominance that I guess was so profound at a time, like you say, when freestyle really was the pinnacle of kiteboarding, and you know there weren't all these other disciplines around that just kind of left its legacy on the sport that I don't think you'll ever get away from. But you certainly wear it really well and handled a lot of that pressure as well really well. But the video projects you mentioned, now, I mean, I would love anyone listening to this podcast who hasn't been kite surfing as long as us to go back on YouTube and try and find some of the Andy Gordon videos that you made, because you kind of changed the way that kiteboarding videos even existed when you came out with those. Could you tell us a little bit about how that came about and what happened? I remember being shown the video the first time and just having my mind blown.
Yeah, it was insane, really. And I mean, at the end of, like I spoke about a bit before, it was at the end of my last year's competing where there was so many events, but actually the last year I competed, there was only 4 events. And yeah, I was like, I'm putting all my effort in for 4 events a year. And then, yeah, like some results didn't go my way, and some of the rules and regulations or whatever. And I was just like, you know what, like maybe there's another way to show what I like to do with my kiteboarding, you know, and show my skills. And it kind of, the video thing was, I would like to do some of my own projects, but then we also started On the Loose, which was a Red Bull video series with Ruben Lenton.
Yeah, I remember
So I
that.
was traveling around a lot for that, and I think that's was one side to get to know like a bit more personality, or a bit more relatable. And I still have a lot of people who really loved that. Like it was a really cool series. But on the other side of things, like, yeah, I always have my personal goals to just show the latest tricks that I could do. And it first came around with Andy Gordon, that I went to Australia on a promo tour for Flexifoil with Jason. And this guy came to the beach and was like, oh, can we film a bit? Like, whatever, just would like to make a video, this and that. And we didn't really think much of it. And then he said, like, yeah, sure, let's make a full video. We're going to these spots. We're going to do a bit more. Let's see. He did it. We carried on as normal, like didn't really hear much from him. And then like literally, it must have been 6 months later, it took him forever. I just got like this message from him, and I was with my friends, I think probably Lewis, Ruben in Cape Town or something, and I like opened the file and we watched it and we were just like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, I mean, even nowadays people look at it and say, how was that even done? Or, you know, that level of trickery with the camera is like kind of still unheard of. And I was just like blown away. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wait to release it, of course. And after watching it like two or three times, I just literally picked up the phone to him. I was like, when are you off next? Like, let's do the next one. I'll get you here to South Africa as soon as you have time. And it wasn't even his full-time job. He did other things, and he just was a bit of a hobby. And he took his time off work and then flew over to Cape Town, and we did the next one, and it was just as good. So yeah, in the end, I managed to make like 4 really amazing videos with him over 2 or 3 year period. So yeah, I think they're like the few pillars that really solidified my well, over half of my career, you know, with the competitions, the video series, and then like these crazy crazy video projects, which were they were tough to film, and we had to really do it in different ways. You know, there's like heli scenes in there which are not drones. They weren't around. It was like literally he was hanging out the edge of a helicopter. We had like cranes and all sorts of stuff that we would travel with to get like these crazy like pull angles. And then we had like always had to have 2 or 3 cameras so that he could actually morph post edit and morph that these kind of like spinning camera shots and stuff. So yeah, his creativity was just insane, and I think they will go down in history for sure.
Yeah, I'll put links to them in the show notes, because if you haven't seen them and you don't know what we're talking about, these videos still to this day they stand up to the test of time, right? You can watch them and go, that is a really, really sick kiteboarding film. Are you still in touch with him? Do you still hear from him, or is it kind of
No, lost touch a long time ago. Actually, I don't know what happened in the end with or what he's up to these days. But so many people always ask me like, "Oh, you got to do like a new version and get back in touch and do it again," you know. But he will just go down as a legend in the sport for sure for those videos.
And you then sort of switched to kind of park riding and got involved in like events like the Triple S and things like that. And what was the sort of what was the pull for that really? What attracted you to sort of switching up from just pure freestyle to something, you know, quite different and quite technical and you know, very different style to what you had been riding?
Yeah, I think just something different. You know, like the thing I love the most is always progressing, learning something new. And people always like, oh, how do you stay motivated for whatever 25 years, 20 years? And I think I'm always trying to find something new to motivate myself with. And I did so many disciplines at a certain point because I felt it was just easier to they kind of helped each other out, but at the same time you could focus in on one and be a bit more just like motivated to ride the right conditions at the right time instead of struggling in 30 knots to do a handle pass. You could go and do big air, or if you had the right setup with the rails, it was just something totally new, something really fun. Yeah, the spectacle is not something spectacular, but the feeling of actually doing it is really unique. I really liked the idea of using the kickers because I also done a lot of wave kickers to get a different like access and do different tricks in a different way. So that was kind of a draw that I could bring my freestyle in and kind of do new tricks again by using the ramp. And it was just a good vibe, like going to these events with different group of people and a different pressure, I guess. It was just there to ride and to learn, and I think it was just nice to go in a different direction for a little while. But I feel like I mean that's also what happened with with the sport was kind of going a bit more in that direction at the time. Then it died off, and now it goes a bit more in big air. So the whole sport is always moving and changing. And I think for me, it's just trying to, really stay current, and kind of just go with that, like, of course I cannot do the same freestyle moves like I used to so often, because in the end, the body, the knees, it's just like, it's just such high impact. And then I went into park, um, and then through that into big air, and it's just I just kind of follow the sports direction, I think, and try and do my best in what is ever current at the time.
Yeah, they certainly sort of, when you retired from competing for freestyle, and then all of a sudden you're winning the park events and doing really well at that. And then with big air, that you probably held on to a big air competitive career longer than most of the old crew, right? You were still doing events a couple of years ago, I think, even, more recent than that. And that started obviously with the King of the Air in Cape Town. How did that first competition feel when you did the first one, and what was it like?
Yeah. I mean, I was still like well into freestyle back then, and those first events were on sea kites and boots, doing all the some crazy tricks, kite loops and kite loop panel passes and on all sorts of stuff. So it was like a different thing to what it is now, for sure. But again, it was like something I was always in touch with, because riding with Ruben, being in Cape Town, there was many times where it was like we were doing that anyway, just for fun. And it just suited my career like path. Like, it just made total sense to like transition into the big air as the big air started to take over and be more prominent in the sport. The freestyle was hard, intense. Like, that era was kind of over for me because of just the intensity of travel, training, the impact. Eventually it just it takes its toll. Whereas big air is hard and intense, but it's not that repetitive. Impact on the body. It's just, if you crash, you crash hard. Don't get me wrong. It's like high risk. But it's like I could definitely go into that and extend my career way further by just being involved with that, and just being so competitive. Of course, once I jump into something, I'm just like, 100% in and pushing it in that direction. And the King of the Airs just started to become one of the biggest events of the year, and just got bigger and bigger year on year. And now is basically the one to win, and to be a part of that and to grow up through that, and still, not only go through generations of freestyling and then go now through generations of big air. Like, it's just nice to still be able to go to the beach, hold my own, and ride with kids in heats that are half my age and, even younger, and still, have that respect. And just a totally different mindset nowadays, of course, and totally realistic on my goals and achievements in a competition. But it's still nice to really have a deep understanding of what they are doing. And that's just where I am now.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, was it 3 times you won King of the Air? I can't remember.
Two
Two
times, and then there was a few podiums as
podiums.
well.
Yeah, a few podiums as well. So it's pretty good. I remember, even in the sort of the later years of your big air career, I'd always think, oh, if you drew Aaron Hadlow in a heat, even though you're probably half his age and you fancy your chances, it's probably still one of those names that you don't want to see come up in your heat draw. It's like still a bit of a mental challenge, but it's great to see that you've had such a long competitive career. It's been, incredible. And I think probably the biggest move that you made in terms of, the wider aspects of what you've been doing within kiteboarding was when you switched from flexifoil to what was North, then duotone, and at the time that was seen as quite a big career move. And I believe that was brought about through friendship with Ralph Groschel, working with him in South Africa, and sort of flying some of the North kites as they were at the time. And that's how that started. And obviously, you know, you're still really good buddies with Ralph. So how was it when you first met him on the beach? What was it like?
Yeah, so that was at a time when, yeah, FlexiFloor was just, yeah, coming to an end. It wasn't sustainable to keep the business in check as it was. And at that time I had like a split in the road. It's like, do I go already at that age fully down the Hadlow kite brand route, which I had developed with FlexiFoil. You know, I have my lines of kites. I have my lines. I understood the basic principles of running a company, but I didn't have the investment. I didn't have the contacts, and I ventured into it. But yeah, so many things just didn't align. I just didn't have the products underneath me, with a change of factories and all these kind of like so many factors. And then on the other side, I went to the beach one day and I think he actually came up and was like, I've got this kite. I mean, I had seen this kite. It was the Vegas as we know it today, basically. But the first of that kind of proper, more C, more square shaped Vegas. And I was always interested in it and saw it around in Cape Town. And then I met Ralph and he's like, oh, just give it a go. I was under no contract or anything anymore. I had kites pulling one way, like where the factory I was working with it just wasn't working out. I hate kites that pull one way. It's like my niggles on me so bad. It's like so annoying. And then I got this kite and it was just perfectly crisp, perfectly straight. I went out, gave my feedback to Ralph. I think he was quite impressed with the way I could translate the feeling into like a technical term for him to understand. And yeah, the kite needed a bit of work, but I could definitely work with it. And yeah, I think I've just always followed gear over anything else. I wanted to be on the best gear. I always knew I needed to be in a place where I could develop and make things work for my style of riding. And yeah, we kind of hit the ground running in terms of being able to yeah, communicate and work on the kites and designs. And then that led me to make a deal with Duotone eventually. I think that was quite a strong pull on both sides. And I mean, that's really funny because that was, you know, over 10 years ago when we signed. And I remember signing being told like, oh yeah, let's see, like negotiating the deal. You're kind of at the end of your career now. Like, you know, we're going to be looking at the next stages. So like maybe this and this is not so, you know, relevant. And I was just like there, I'm like, no, I understand, but like, I still think I can do well. Um, and yeah, just having the kites under in my hands, and I was able to come back from injury and win a few world tour events. I won the King of the Air twice in the first few years with them. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It was totally different to go from one of the smallest brands and really handling everything individually myself in terms of branding and marketing. And you know, I had a core people around me to help me with everything, but I kind of was the person to put everything together. And then going to Duotone, which was like the biggest company on the market by a margin, I guess, at the time. And then yeah, just having like way less input. It was a huge change for me, but yeah, I was totally happy to jump that, and that allowed me to focus back in on my career and then still carry on down that road of leaving my living my competitive dream and carrying that on, and then yeah, being able to focus on different things later in life, I guess.
Yeah, and they had a few like pro model products for you as well, didn't they? They started with a kite, and then there was a Vegas version that was like the Hadlow version. How different were they to the sort of standard production? How tuned were they to the way that you rode?
Yeah, I mean, with FlexiFoil, they were just my kites and they were the production kites, and that's exactly how I wanted it. The Vegas was, yeah, it was the Vegas, that was the kite. And in the end with them, it just had a print difference. So there was no different. There were some extra settings on there that I used, a line configuration that I used and we sold. but generally, the kind of people's
Kite
the
itself
same.
is pretty similar. It's more the tuning of it.
Um, yeah, exactly. And then I did work a bit more intensely on the board with them to have like the team, like the kind of team series Hadlow version, which had a little bit difference in it in size, but generally always that technology would, or ideas and design would always go into the main production one as well. So yeah, it's a totally different concept when you come into a big company like that already has huge numbers and a huge sales strategy. Um, so yeah, I mean, I learned so much at Flexi doing it that way, and then I learned so much going to like the opposite thing. And yeah, I mean, that also led me to where I am today with Harlem to kind of bring all that knowledge together into a new upcoming company. Yeah.
Yeah, just to stay on Duotone quickly before we get on to Harlem, so I do want to chat about those guys because it's quite impressive what they've been doing. But when you did that first bit of testing with Ralph, it felt like, your early days at Duotone, you were, still very much a pro rider, still very much doing, events, world tour events, a bit of freestyle, a lot of big air, that kind of stuff. At what stage did your career kind of transition from the competitive side to more the testing side? Because I know that you became a bit of an invaluable team, like Aaron and Ralph testing the products in Cape Town, and it wasn't just the Vegas, it extended to the Evo and the Rebel and lots of other kites. And I know from doing a couple of podcasts with Ralph how much he values you as a tester. So at what stage did that kind of transition happen? Was it quite quick, or was it happened over time?
Yeah, I would say it was a progression over the 10 years, step by step. Definitely the first years we focused just on the Vegas. He did his thing with the kites that he had. Um, and then, yeah, there was just a few trips started to come like, oh, try this, try that. And yeah, I mean, it was never like one to the other. I mean, even till, the last few years, I wouldn't say I've completely 100% transitioned over. Like I was still competing and doing both. Um, but yeah, there was definitely a time when, yeah, I wasn't competing in boots and on a Vegas anymore. And it was like, yeah, time to, yeah, just go down this avenue with him and try to learn more about different types of kites. The whole style of kites were changing. The whole knowledge base on kites were changing at that time. Um, and yeah, we started with, doing the big air kites, or let's say like, or even the light wing kites. Yeah, we just tried whatever really. I would just be open to go on test trips and learn. And then yeah, as the years went on, we did more Evo D Lab. Like always, I mean, he's so competitive that he's just trying to set the benchmark in kiteboard design. And then my competitiveness is of course personal and on the water, but like I also am driven to be on the best kit myself and also be able to extend my knowledge and get that on the market too. So yeah, it's just a really good combo really. I think nowadays, yeah, we've had so much time together that we trust each other's like feeling and ideas. Like of course he definitely leads by far, but there are times when I think he can send me a kite and he can trust my feedback, say in an early stage before we go to the next round, where we would join on a trip together, validate it together. But generally, our thoughts and yeah, input is aligned. Um, and yeah, I think it's just a really cool combination that works really well right now, and the knowledge and the time frames and everything. There's so many factors to get a kite to the market. I'm really trying to make changes that, yeah, that make a difference, even though the details are so fine. Yeah, I think it's working really well.
And when did you first, obviously Ralph, left Duotone a few years ago now to set up the Brainchild Factory, which, listeners to this podcast will know we've done a big, couple of big podcasts with Ralph on that. So when did you first hear about Brainchild, and when did that come on your radar? And did you actually go and visit the factory at all and see what Ralph was doing there?
No, not until I had changed over to Harlem did I see the factory for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really prominent. Like it was, I got the feeling that his time with duotone was coming to an end, and then it was never on my mind that I would also be leaving, let's say, or something. It was really, there was a period of time where for me it was really uncertain, like where it would leave me if he leaves, because obviously we were quite a team in the design. So yeah, I mean, I knew about, like, he was doing his factory and doing some prototypes and stuff like that. I think at the beginning I was always under the impression that would be something that continued at Duotone, you know, um, and it would carry on from there. And for whatever reason, you know, he went the direction he went. And then, yeah, I also came to a crossroads at a certain point when my contract was up and other offer was available. Like, where do I want to go with my career? Especially, you know, last year competition, I kind of always stay tagged in it somehow, like can't let it go because I just want to. I love it so much, and even if I'm not doing as well as I ever used to, it's like it's really hard to, after having that in your body for so long, it's hard to move on. Um, but yeah, I mean, you had to I wanted to think about the future, have a new challenge, and by that time, it was quite clear to me that the combination of Ralph and his factory together was was a really nice direction for products. And like I said before, like I always kind of followed gear before anything else. And I just always felt that with Ralph, I could be on the best gear. Basically, I think that was my main factor that made me make the move and go with him, because yeah, it's important to me to be on the best gear. I feel that can give me the best opportunity as a rider, and then moving forward, yeah, leave a legacy and leave a mark on the industry, not on the water, but with, you know, with the products in the market. So yeah, that's
And
basically how I went.
Harlem, I think, were his first customer at the factory. I think I remember when I went there a couple of years ago, he was making some bags and some wings, I think, as his first customer. And then obviously they became his first big main kite customer. How did the move for you come about going to Harlem? You said you were kind of at a crossroads, but who approached who? Was it because of your relationship with Ralph that's where you decided to go, or were Harlem approaching you as well and keen to take you on? Like, how did it sort of come about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit of a shock because to the industry, to because it was kind of very yeah, just kind of from one thing to the next and quite a huge switch. um but yeah, for me, I was just at a point where I was like, yeah, things with Duotone were great, like no hard feelings. So happy with the support they had provided me over the years. But I felt like a big part of my future was probably in the testing and development, you know, and that's something like I just have the feeling in my hands for that. Um, and then yeah, once Ralph left, obviously before I finished with Duotone, and yeah, it just wasn't the same, you know. Like you have to create this whole new relationship with designers. You have to build that trust all again, something I'd done over 10 years. Um, and the way I worked was that I was just so confident knowing that what I feel in the kite is right, you know, and that's something that, yeah, he trusts in. And yeah, it was more the fact, I think he had told me like, yeah, this is kind of his plan, like where he would like to go. Um, and yeah, he said he just always would recommend like, oh, this is a good direction, like if you wanted to do something different. So yeah, it was in my mind. And then yeah, I just opened up the conversation with Harlem, saw what was possible. Obviously, it's a small brand, not the same funding. Yeah, not the same budgets. So this was always in my mind, but yeah, I was sold by the the passion, the vision, the products were already, yeah, going in a good direction. And at that point, I could make my decision like, okay, I want to follow the gear. I think I can make a huge impact in a company with my knowledge, not only in the kites, like I've seen how all the brands, um, yeah, create their all sorts of different things from photo shoots to marketing to, I can piece a lot of little elements together and make an impact in different ways. And I felt it was just time for something new, and nothing more than that, really.
Yeah. And what was it like the first time you flew one of the Harlem kites? Because there's a lot of technology in there that's very different. Obviously, with duotone, you would have been on the D Labs, which use the Alula material. And I know Ralph is using, the welded seams and very different materials, but still creating some exceedingly high performance, lightweight kites that when you look at the numbers, they're kind of similar in weight to the D Labs. So what was it like flying one of those welded seam kites for the first time?
Yeah, I never really flew any Harlem prototypes beforehand, like until I was always just, you know, always stayed till the end of my contract, and then I would move on. And I said that was always going to be the case, even if I was there in South Africa at the same time. I didn't go down that route, but I knew what Ralph was capable of, and I knew what style of kites he rode. Like I did, like this I've done the blank kite test and stuff like that recently, where I could just like literally have my eyes closed and know it's his kite. It's like something about the DNA and the way he designs things that I just know that suits my style of riding, because that's what I've grown with. So yeah, the feeling, I was right at home. Like, of course, when I launched the video on the Force kite, which was not one of his designs, but it was built in his factory. And yeah, that was not really a kite that I could just jump on and be totally at home at. Like it was at the time that I joined that we actually launched the Thrive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I launched the video, but the Thrive wasn't launching. But on that same trip, I rode that kite for the product video, and then that was the first time I went from like struggling a bit, trying to get used to this other kite, to then just grabbing straight onto the Thrive and being like, well, like, okay, I'm just straight back at home, like, 100% confidence from the off. So of course, like, I had already committed, I was already 100% in, but yeah, it wasn't a big risk for me. I knew what I was in for. And yeah, now later down the line, we have more products, we're expanding the range, I'm like heavily involved with that. And yeah, I still feel like it's only the beginning.
Yeah, it feels like it's a brand that's on quite a big trajectory. If you look at their roster of pro riders, they've got some pretty hefty names on there with the Casatis and yourself and a few others. What are the team like behind the scenes? Obviously working with Duotone, it's a huge company, part of the Boards and More group, so there's a lot of people there. I'd imagine that, Harlem, it's a small Dutch brand, or, medium-sized Dutch brand that's growing. What's it like with working with the guys there?
Yeah, really good. It's a small brand still, definitely growing quick. But when I first joined, it was a handful of people, right? It's small. Now we already doubled in the first year in terms of like employees and stuff in the team. So like things are on a really fast, good trajectory. But yeah, I mean, the guys are just passionate about what they do. They really take on board the lessons that people like myself or Ralph have learned in the past, listen to our input, and they still have, like a clear vision of what they want to do. They're excited to launch amazing products, to make a change in the sport. And it's totally different vibe. Like, of course, you're Tony, a huge, much more corporate style, a lot more people to go through. And I think with Harlem, it's nice on the other side of things, is that it's very adaptive. Problems can be solved quick. Good things are really appreciated. Like for instance, I think at all brands, everybody is checking the events and interested in their riders, but the guys at Harlem are like, so they stop everything. They're fully in on the live stream, or as many people are trying to get to the events in person to help out as possible. There's a real passion there for for building the brand and being a part of the team. That's definitely something that, yeah, has come across strongly. Yeah, of course, they are quite loud. They are doing things their way, and yeah, what can I say? It's making an impact. I like what they're doing, and yeah, I'm also very happy to be a part of this team.
And have you had much input in the development of the bar and the boards?
Yeah, totally, definitely. I mean, let's say like when nothing, I wasn't involved before the Thrive. So the Thrive was kind of almost done, and the bar and the pads. So a certain amount of the products was pretty much ready when I came in. But from then onwards, I've been like really involved with everything. Definitely the peak, huge amount of testing to bring the 5-strut kite in, the big air kite. Um, and yeah, my role now is totally different. Like 1 year, a bit more than a year down the line with Harlem, then really found my way. I'm really integrated into the company. I'm in touch with factories. I'm actually doing a lot of the board design, working again with Ralph. But yeah, I'm in touch with the factories, creating all the layups, getting all the prototypes. I'm starting to be in touch with our other factories, for instance, like making changes on the bar. I'm in discussion, yeah, with the investors and CEOs about our product portfolio, where we want to be in 26, where we want to be in 27, making timelines for that. So yeah, it's definitely a huge, yeah, step up in responsibilities. But I'm finding it, yeah, really enjoyable. Yeah, my weeks are a bit more structured than they used to be. I have like weekly meetings and certain things to deliver, which I've never had in my kiteboarding off at any time traveling career. But yeah, it's really a nice change.
And if you're going to go for a session, perfect conditions back home, what's your go-to setup? What are you taking out?
Yeah, I'm riding the peaks. Yeah, standard setup, and then the Ascent board. I mean, I think what we came to the market with originally, or they did when they launched the brand, was the Thrive, which is a 3-strut all-round kite. My first board that I was involved in the testing and developing of was the Launch, which is a kind of more of a free ride, more flexible board. Um, and that was like, yeah, I would say suits the majority of riders out there. And then moving on, we designed the Peak and the Ascent to go together as a package as well. So that board works perfectly with the Kite for big air conditions, more stronger, intense, more structural stability. And so yeah, that's my go-to setup right now. But we have a lot of cool projects in the making as well, and looking to expand the product range quite a lot in the coming years. So yeah, as always, I'm generally out there testing and riding all sorts of different things. But yeah, it's what I've done always, what I enjoy to do, and yeah, that's about it.
And getting back to movies for a second, because I don't think we could do this podcast without mentioning the movie you did with Lacey Kabolsky, which was 20, which was 5 years old now, I'm guessing. And I think I was lucky enough to be at the premiere with you and Lewis and Lance in Tarifa when you launched it. But have you got any other big movie projects on, or is the product development going to take too much time out of your diary to be able to do that kind of stuff, do you think?
I don't have any plans right now. That was a really cool time to release that video. I think it was something I've always wanted to do, regardless of how it was received. Of course, long format videos these days are, yeah, not trending. They are different, but I think there's still a big appreciation for them in some aspects. And it was just a nice project for me to show where I was in the sport at that time. I would like to do something again, definitely. Um, I'm not sure when this podcast comes out, but probably in the coming weeks. And by that time, there will also be a new product launch from Harlem and a new cool project I've been working on, which is full circle again. Um, and yeah, it's just so that's probably the next thing. I think we can probably talk about that now. So I'm basically bringing back the Hadlow Pro as a sea kite,
Oh, nice.
and a full package with a board and a bar. I've been riding a bit of freestyle again like lately. Of course, not at the same level, doing the same thing,
How are
but
the knees feeling about that?
yeah, sore, swollen. But it was just a bit of a nod to where we are in the sport with freestyle right now. I think it's nice to give it a bit of a boost, and yeah. So it wasn't a video project, but of course, there's been some video around it to
Around
create
it,
the
yeah.
hype for the product. So it's a bit of a combination of passion project, bringing back some cool graphics and doing that whole promotion for this kind of setup again. So
How do you
hopefully you don't
feel
release
about?
this before next week.
I won't. We can hold it. We can hold it back. I'll make sure we do, so you don't get in trouble. But how do you feel about? Well, it's me doing the editing as well, so it might take me a month. But no, we're trying to smash these out on a pretty regular basis at the moment. But how do you
Sure.
feel about freestyle? It was such a big part of your life, and it's almost like a forgotten art. Like I went to Qatar recently, where obviously one of the World Tour events was held. And I think we did that trip together when they first were showcasing what they were going to do. And I missed, we shot a front cover there, didn't we? And
Yeah.
I didn't actually kite. So Sarah, the girl that was sort of running the centre, she said, "Oh, you must come over and kite sometime." So she invited me over to kite, and I went there, and it's such an amazing freestyle spot. But I started unhooking and like chucking a couple of Rayleighs, which is about the limit of my unhooked tricks these days at my tender years. And people were like, "What are you doing?" Like they just couldn't, like they'd never seen it before. And they were like, "What?" Because all they were doing is just jumping. And I feel like there's almost people that have come into kiteboarding and they've only known big air and the woo and surfer app and going for big jumps. And they don't really get that there's this whole other side of the sport. And I'd sort of say, to back that up, you could look at, I probably couldn't tell you who's doing the Freestyle World Tour at the moment in kiteboarding, even though it's my job to kind of know, but I could name, the top 5 big air riders. So how do you feel about that transition? And do you think there's going to be a change in the future and it will come full circle, or do you think it's kind of done?
Yeah, I mean, it's a total shame. Like, that's how I see it right now. And of course, I've not been able to. I mean, I've followed the direction of the sport with big air, and I really miss the freestyle, but it's literally like my body. And I mean, I could have done more probably, but there's definitely a limiting factor. I think when you do it at such a high level that, just to go back and just do it half-heartedly, you never get that same fulfillment again. So it kind of just got put on the back burner. But yeah, I mean, like I said, with changing disciplines and doing different things, like I feel like I'm at that point. I've done big air for so long now that I'm craving for like a new challenge again or whatever. And yeah, I just think freestyle is the hardest, most technical thing in kiteboarding by a country mile. And I know what the guys are doing now are super extreme and very technical. It's hard to see how many spins and board flips and spins they're actually doing. But I would still personally rate that to do, a 720 or a 900 variation of a freestyle trick is harder. So there is that element of, having that feeling like kind of like what happened to it, and it kind of shrinking so far out of the limelight when it was the main thing. And that was a little bit why I felt like it was just time to see what we could do. Like the kite was sat there. It was we'd had some prototypes. We were looking at ways to bring it to market, and then I kind of just jumped in and said like, okay, let's do it like this, and we will. I jumped back on the kite on the setup in the perfect conditions in Greece, and was just like, what? I just had the best 2 days I've had in ages. Like, yeah, I was sore. I was like on the plane back, like in bits. And it was a tough couple of days after like not training like heavily for it. But the enjoyment was like so good. And like the technicality is something I love so much, and it is just so difficult that it was a really nice challenge. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, big air is definitely so dominant right now, but I still feel there is a space for the freestyle stuff. And in terms of products, nothing's changed for so long. That's why I thought, okay, like we can do something amazing with Brainchild, and the technology there in the sea kites bring something totally new. And yeah, I mean, let's see how it's received. Of course, it's not huge numbers. Um, People aren't going to be flooding to the shops to buy sea kites these days, but there's still definitely a core following of freestyles in certain areas around the world, and hopefully it gets a bit of excitement and the ball rolling there again.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, I think one of the beauties of kiteboarding, and I was talking to someone the other day about this, is it's so versatile. Like you can do so many different things. Like you've got, a twin tip, you've got boots, you've got, riding sliders, you can, ride a skimboard, a surfboard, a hydrofoil. Like there's so many different sides to it. And it feels like every little aspect has its moment in the limelight. Like I remember a year when they were selling more surfboards than they were twin tips because strapless freestyle was the thing. And you go to Tarifa, which is not a place to ride a surfboard, and everybody's riding surfboards, like nobody's riding twin tips. And I think chatting to Till from Duotone, he's like, oh yeah, we're just selling loads of these. Whereas now, like, they're just selling none. And I just wonder if, like, with the big air thing, whether it will have its moment in the sun. But I guess the danger is that kiteboarding was always made for big air, right? It's one of the reasons we all got into it and all fell in love with it, was you could send a jump and boost so high. So there's always going to be those feelings and emotions that kind of bring people back to wanting to do that with a kite. But it'd be good to see like the freestyle get a resurgence, because I think, like you say, it's so technical and it's so good to watch when the good guys are doing it, to realize like how much effort they've got to put in to nail those tricks consistently and regularly. And yeah, I guess it shows that, you don't get a 13-year-old, apart from yourself, freestyler rock up these days. It's someone that's been doing it for a long period of time,
No.
like Jean Mario winning the world title. He's an older guy who's been at it for a long period of time, who's put the effort in, put the hours in. Yet you can get a young, fearless big air rider who's been doing the sport for 3 or 4 years just come and, take a podium down, because the technical side of it, or the knowledge and the know-how, isn't as intense as it is with the freestyle side. So it'd be really interesting to see the sport move back to that a little bit. I guess at the end of the day, we're beholden to the big companies and their marketing budgets and what they're pushing, and they're always going to push what they can sell. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the sport's changed. I mean, what I would say in closing, I'm aware I've had quite a bit of your time, Aaron, but it's amazing to see, your career span such a long period of time, and to see you still doing so well with it and so engaged with it as well. I think it's great move going to Harlem, good to see you working with Ralph. Fantastic to see you working on the products that you're doing and looking so happy about it, even though you might have to attend the odd meeting here and there and have a deadline or two to deliver.
Yeah,
But
things
yeah,
have changed.
things have changed. But yeah, it's really great. I mean, thank you very much for your time, Aaron. I think we covered off quite a lot there, so it's good to sort of have that chat. And yeah, I really appreciate the catch up.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it was good to catch up and reminisce a bit as well. It's been a long career, a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm still in it, still passionate about it, still plenty to go.
Well,
Not sure how many competitions are left in me, but you never know.
let's
I might get pulled
let's
back in somehow.
let's see if we're sat here in another 25 years, and I'll be in a Zimmer
Yeah,
frame or something like that by then, I expect. But yeah, cheers, Aaron. Thanks for that. That's
nice one,
great.
mate.
Thanks for listening to the Kite Pod with me, Roo Chater. Brought to you by the team at IKSurfMag.com, the world's #1 media outlet for kitesurfing. A big shout out to our diamond supporters, Duotone, Cabrina, Core Kiteboarding and Ozone, for making this podcast possible. For daily news, videos and updates from across the world of kitesurfing, head over to IKSurfMag.com. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you more great conversations. See you next time.